We are proud to welcome, I think it's the second year, right guys? Well, who do we have here? We have our owner builder Q&A. And I think last year was the first year we did it. We have Matt Evers and Pete Van Horn. They are neighbors and friends that produce a YouTube channel called Owners Builders Unite, based here in Crestone. Yay! Their channel focuses on alternative building and off-grid lifestyles. Matt and Pete cover everything from earthships, passive solar, rainwater harvesting, alternative power, food storage, natural building modalities, community, to just name a few. In the Q&A, Matt and Pete will go over the process of living and building off the grid in our unique community and give others the tools and knowledge to do it. So please welcome Matt and Pete.
Mike.
Check.
Start her off, buddy.
All right, everybody, thanks for coming out to the Energy Fair. Happy to see everybody and it growing. Me and Matt are just going to give a little intro on ourselves and our background. Thanks to Kim for a little preface there, and then we'll kind of get into what it takes to build a house out here, and some questions and answers and all that. So hope you guys like it. Yeah, so I got here to Crestone about 8 years ago. I built a small 900 square foot earthship in the Baca Grants. Went down to Taos and did the earthship biotexture internship for a little bit and got out here, bought some land back in 2015 and got here in 2016. Matt and Goldie have an earthship right down the road, so we started our builds in the same month in 2017. So we got a chance to work on each other's houses, do work parties, but we both built earthship houses. So yeah, happy to be here. And Matt, you go ahead and tell us about your process.
Yeah, Matt. Helped out with a lot of projects out here in Crestone. Been here about as long as Pete. Started about the same day, actually, with Pete. Yeah, and I just think Crestone's a really special place. My favorite place ever. Almost anything here is here, building-wise. We have scoriacrete, earth chips, straw bales. It's a really unique place. I love it. I think Pete does. I know Pete does too. We're super lucky. We want more people to move here to do what we've done, and we both built. We're mortgage-free on our homes. Super lucky. Super unique situations, but we want to empower the people to do what we've done and build your own house.
And Saguache County, as you guys learned yesterday, a lot of you already know this, but it's a pocket of freedom. So in earthship terms, what a pocket of freedom is there's no building codes. Although we do have plumbing codes with the state and electrical codes with the state that you have to pass. It's something where you can build a straw bale house, you can build a earthship house, scoria bag house, rammed earth house, you name it. Hempcrete, everything kind of still goes here. So they're not making more pockets of freedom, and more counties are adopting building codes. That's not saying that you can't build alternatively still, but it's a lot easier to do it without it. So we want to really save the culture of building your own houses. I think Mike Reynolds, the guy that invented earthships back in the 60s down in Taos, New Mexico, he said I think a quote is, if beavers and wasps can build their own house, why can't we? So we want to empower everybody to kind of support people. We watched a lot of stuff and picked a lot of neighbors' brains and had tons of people that came before us that built their own house that really filled us in 8 years ago. So that's kind of what we want to do. So
yeah, and that's the basis of our YouTube channel is we do how-to videos. Pete's super knowledgeable on POA regulations and our local codes. He's up to date on a lot of that stuff. So those technical questions I normally throw over to Pete. And yeah, just to clarify, yesterday, Brett on the builders panel, they were talking about square footage. And so you want to tell them about the square footage, the regulations that we have here, Pete?
Yeah, so for everybody that's not from Saguache County, maybe you're out of town or out of state visiting, or maybe you have property here but you don't know all the things you have to do. It was mentioned on the natural building panel yesterday. A lot of people kept on throwing around 900 square feet. 900 square feet is how small you can build for the Baca POA in the chalets and the grants. In Casita Park, you can actually build 720 square feet. So it is smaller. And then the county of Saguache is 150 square feet. So if you live in unconsolidated Saguache County and you have 35 acres, you could build a 150 square foot little cabin. And also in the town of Crestone proper, which we're in here right now, I can't remember if it's 300 square feet or if it is the same with the county where it's 150 square feet. So if you are wanting to build smaller than 900 square feet, which a lot of people like because you can save money that way, you can get your build done quicker that way and not take years to build. You can certainly buy land in Saguache County or the town of Crestone proper, but in the Baca POA, you have to build at least 900 for the grants and chalets.
Yeah, and the reason why that's important is we do some consultation through our YouTube channel and just with our local friends, and we always recommend building as small as you can and then doing additions later to keep your costs down and to get finished with the POA and the county permits so that you can keep moving without paying plumbing and electric. So go small, plan for additions is a good strategy. And then, where to start is where we're going to go into now is, just like even buying your land. There's local realtors, Nick Navarez, big fan of Nick, Rick Hart, local realtors here. And then you want to talk about delinquent parcels at all?
Yeah, so the first steps, where do you start? If you're interested in this lifestyle and you really are called to do what, you want to build your own house, it's probably going to be the hardest thing you ever done, whether it's building a stick frame house or a straw bale house or a nurse ship house. It takes a lot of time, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. I had literally no experience when I came out here with building, and I did it, and I didn't have too much of a budget, so it's doable, but it's going to take time. Prices for land back in the day, my original parcel out in the grants in 2015 was $2,700. So almost 10 years ago, these lots were so cheap. I mean, I think every car that I've ever bought is more than $2,700. So I have a piece of land that I paid for that was cheap. Nowadays, lots up and down my road are probably $15,000, $20,000. So the prices have definitely gone up, but there's ways of getting started without that. Nick Navarez, like I said, he's a realtor. You can talk to Nick about parcels if you're interested in doing that. Also, Saguache County, every year they publish their Saguache County owned lots on their list. It's usually in the fall time, I want to say. But what that is, it's lots that are on back taxes, if you will. So I think the starting bids for Baca grant lots that are in the grants were $4,000 for a number of years. So I know a lot of folks that have got off-grid grant lots for $4,000 up until just this past year. They're not always available, and they go quick when they do. The one thing to be mindful of, and I know Nick said this last year when we talked about it, but depending if you're in the chalets where you're hooked up to Baca water and sand or tap fees, there might be late and delinquent tap fees and things that you have to pay. But if you're in the grants and you have a well and a septic, you don't have to worry about that. So if you're interested in living off-grid, having solar, having a well, that type of thing, the Saguache County owned lot list on their website is a great way to get in.
And also something to be aware of is if you are buying a back tax property in Chalet 1, 2, or 3, they do have some complications with water and sewer going into cul-de-sacs where you can think you're getting a good deal, and then when you call to get water or sewer plumbed into your lot, it winds up being like $200,000. So you should call up Baca Water and Sanitation before you purchase your land. It's just due to lack of infrastructure, and it's not their fault, but just something to be wary of. So don't just buy it. Go stand on it. Do your research on the piece of land. And, and then focusing on what to build. It's always a good idea to have an idea of what you want to build before you start building. And I see that a lot here where people just want to go for it, don't really have it all ironed out, like a good floor plan, knowing where your mechanical rooms are, knowing where your water's plumbed into, knowing where your main sewer lines coming out of. I just see that a lot. It's just something, there's a lot more homework that I feel like should go into it sometimes for folks. And then looking at what we have locally, like Ken Scoglin's pit has a lot of materials, and I feel like using local building materials is the way to go here. So we're all kind of striving to do great straw bale. We got a lot of straw bales here, a lot of local materials. What do you guys say?
Yeah, and depending on what you want to build, a lot of people are passionate about alternative building. So whether it's earth ships like me and Matt built that are very labor intensive, I think both of us, it probably took a year or two just to pound tires, right? My friend Paul Copina, who's a famous straw bale builder here that's back in town, he told me one time, Pete, I can stack straw bales a lot quicker than you can pound tires, and he's right. You know, so think about other things. If you're really sucked into the earthship or the straw bales or the rammed earth, just look at other stuff because we have no building codes here. You can work with straw bales and tires. You could work with rammed earth and hempcrete, right? Or you could work with stick frame. You could work with post and beam.
Yeah.
Having no building codes really lets you explore and not be locked into an exact plan and be flexible with learning.
Which leads us into sustainable builds or green builds or alternative builds versus conventional. You can easily take a stick frame building and make it green by a few southern windows. You can put gray water systems in. Gray water is legal in Colorado. You got to jump through hoops going through this stuff. So conventional, I do recommend that to some folks just to get the building up and be done and then build something different like as a smaller unit outside. So conventional can be great. Lumber's renewable. It's a big debate that we have, and I enjoy framing, and Pete's framed a bunch too in the past, and there's pros and cons on both sides of those. So it's not bad to go with a stick frame route, and you can still use recycled materials. We always say recycled materials or free materials aren't free because it takes your time, to make a window fit somewhere. You have to build your house around a window, or you have to take the windows out of the frames, or tires aren't free. You have to go pick them up. They take calories to pack. They take fossil fuels to transport, and examples of that. So. And
the biggest thing too, no matter what you build, we're not, even though we build earthships and there's a real culture around that, and some people are diehards with whatever their building modality is, be flexible, like Matt's saying. The biggest thing that you can do, no matter what you build, here in the Baca, in this part of Colorado, we get so much sun. Everybody wants to be off grid, have solar panels or hydro panels, whatever, passive solar. Face your house south. Please, please, please.
Please.
Face your house south. No matter if you do straw bale, stick frame, earthship, if you have passive solar, and I think Lloyd Kahn, the keynote speaker yesterday, was talking a lot about, over the years of 50 years of him doing it, he's kind of learned lessons and thought, wow, stick frame rectangle is a pretty good idea if it's facing south, right? You can get it done quick. It's probably the fastest way of building a house, and it's facing south, so you're getting a lot of that sun where you're not burning wood, you're not using propane to heat your house.
It's free heat.
It's free heat.
And if you just do it, even with your foundation, you can do a mono slab and insulate underneath, and there's your thermal mass. So these earthship applications apply to conventional buildings, and I feel like we can just have a better understanding environmentally of where we're going with our structures. And yeah, there's tons of ways to do it. And this is why Creststone's beautiful, is because we have a huge community here. If you have questions, if me and Pete don't know the answer, we love to network. We can link you up with the people who are doing the earth bags or the Scoriacrete, or designers, plan designers. Floor plans are really fun and important, I think, with a house too.
And one thing, when you're thinking about your build, especially if you've never built any house, let alone an alternative house, unless you have a huge budget or you've been stacking money for years and you got, a hefty budget, it might take twice as long and it might take twice as much than you forecasted. I thought I was going to come here and build a 900 square foot earthship in 2 years, 3 years. It ended up taking me like 5 years to final with the state and all the inspections. And I thought, I'd probably be into it for $40,000, $50,000, and I'm probably into it for $100,000, right? So yeah. Double your budget, double your time period. It's going to be the hardest thing that you've ever done, especially if you're doing it out of pocket.
Which leads us into funding. Pete was a school teacher at Moffitt, and that's really honorable, and he just did it out of his pocket, paycheck to paycheck. I kind of worked my ass off for about 7 years and saved up for this. And so our local bank, Blue, we're going to do a real quick, you guys have some stuff to say about funding for construction projects and working with Joel, or you want to come up and talk about it real quick, real fast? Our local bank, Blue. Joel.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Joel Weston. I'm the local loan officer at the Blue Federal Credit Union, and my manager here, Lonnie Burkholder, is with us. And so rules are changing. August 2023, Fannie Mae has accepted unique properties. So I've often believed that properties are not unique here because they're common to us. So they should be common to other areas like us, so we can come in with that financing. I mean, like you just spoke to, it was twice the budget that he expected. Now I would hate to see you liquidate your own assets in order to build what you need when you can offset that by borrowing the funds that you need. We have construction loans, we have commercial construction loans. So we do have the financing that can assist you. So it's good to be part of that conversation at the beginning so that we can outline all of your options, essentially so you can make an informed decision on what you need to do to build the house you're looking to build.
Thank you, Joel.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and we're all just trying to keep it local. So go into your local bank, using your local everything, materials. And, with that bank loan, you're going to be on a timeline. And, money can kind of buy you some time sometimes.
And let's talk about timelines real quick, because that does come into play when you're building a house. Here in Swatch County, when you pull a construction permit, and specifically here in the Baca POA, you need to pull your electrical permit, your plumbing permit with the state, some sort of well permit, septic permit if you're in the grants, or pay your tap fees if you're in the chalets. And then also, that all has timelines. So like the DORA, the Department of Regulatory Agencies for the Plumbing and Electric, usually those permits are a year long. So if I'm just pounding tires for a year, I still have to pull my electrical permit and plumbing permit before I start my build.
It's a silly rule.
It's kind of a silly rule, but you have to do it. There are free 6-month extensions with that, but all these permits, even though we're in a pocket of freedom where you can build these alternative houses, are going to cost you money and time. So again, if you think, hey, what's my budget? All this stuff kind of adds up. The Baca POA gives you an initial 18-month building period. So if you buy a lot here, you have 18 months after you pay them deposit money and things like that to build your house. After 18 months, if you're not done with your house, you have to get a 6-month extension, which costs extra money. I think it's nowadays, I want to say it's $70 for your first extension with the POA, but every 6 months after that, it doubles. So if you're 5-6 years into a build, it can get a little bit pricey, and you might not forecast that if you thought your house was going to get done quicker. So yeah, that's kind of big.
And so DIY, like I like to say, do it yourself doesn't mean do it all by yourself. You're going to need help. And back to Crestone, we've had so much help with our neighbors. Thomas has pounded tons of tires at mine. We've pounded tires at Thomas's. And, you're might need to hire someone. Try and go locally. Me and Pete run businesses. I'm going to shamelessly self-promote us. Pete's window washing. What's the name of your business, Pete?
Crestone Baca Window Cleaning.
And I do excavation, Everstone excavation. I do septics and water ties and all sorts of digging. And going with local builders,
And even if you don't, like me and Matt, we didn't have a GC. We were owner builders, right? So there was stuff, like I said, that I can't put up 20-foot pieces of metal by myself. I might need to call Matt up that day and say, hey, you help me with the metal this weekend at my place. I'll come and help you next weekend. So this place has a history of neighbors helping neighbors, obviously like the non-for-profit that we have here, but literally building each other's houses. It's literally like an Amish barn raising.
Work parties, feed people, drinks, beers. It's a great time.
And get into it with other people that are building houses. Like Lloyd Kahn was saying yesterday, this place is so unique. And I think for people that have lived here for decades, or me and Matt for like 8 years, we take it for granted sometimes. We live in such a cool place where you can do all these things, but there's a lot of other people doing it too. So it takes, it really takes a village of people to help a single person out to really do it, because you can't do everything yourself.
True. And which brings us to local contractors. There's a lot of stuff you got to watch out for with local contractors, and we're going to invite Stephen Harrell on stage, and he's one of the contractors that I go to recommend and can give you solid numbers on your project and discuss with you. He takes his time. He's got a really good crew, and let's hear it for Stephen. He's one of our heroes and builders here. Also, Paul Copen is back in town. Don't want to shed too much light on him, but we're big fans of his. Really great building history, and Steven's still in business here. So
yeah, Harrell Quality Homes. Let's give it up for Steven. He's been here for 20 plus years building houses. He's built his own straw bale house. Matt's going to kind of ask Steven a couple questions and have him talk on some things, and then a little bit later on, we're going to open up for some questions and answers for about 30 minutes. But yeah, I'm going to pass the mic to Steven.
Hey, thanks. I love these guys. Great energy, and I am definitely a proponent of building your own house. I love following the channel and really appreciate this opportunity. So,
Thank you. Oh yeah, tell us about what you've built before in the past and what you've contracted and what you've built for yourself and yeah, what got you here, Stephen?
well, actually, Paul Copenhagen got me here, and his straw bale construction, and I had actually been exposed to Crestone when I was growing up in Boulder, Colorado, and had visited here. So this was years, 40 years ago. And actually, one of these guys that turned me on to Crestone was sitting over here, Michael Bertine.
Hey, Michael.
And actually, so it's a small world how it all kind of fits together. So he was friends with a dear friend of mine, and they are the ones that turned me on to Crestone when I was 15 years old. And then I had an opportunity to come back here when Paul Copenhagen decided to make this his home. And so, yeah, that's how that started. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people who are going to be their own general contractor and build their own house and then hire out for framing, wiring, plumbing?
I do, and actually, building costs have skyrocketed so much that I actually have been trying to come up with solutions for folks. And so one of the things that we are trying to focus on is building shells. So that would include all your utilities, foundation, the structure itself, and then turn that shell over to the homeowner, and then they can general contract the remaining components and save quite a bit of money, and they can put their sweat equity in. And yeah, it really is that sweat equity. That's how I can afford to live in my own home, is because I'm a carpenter and I was able to build it.
Which is a great option I recommend that for people because there's a saying that when your drywall's up, you're halfway done paying for it.
Yeah, it's
so
true.
If he's providing you a shell, you can do all the stuff you want to do on the interior and really save money that way. What do you think about affordable housing? Is such a thing nowadays?
I don't think there is, unfortunately, for just us normal folks who are earning a living either with our bodies, doing carpentry, or any other type of physical labor. It's pretty challenging. So you have to really watch every single penny. And so Crestone does make available affordable land, and that's one of the reasons that I moved here, is the affordable land. That's a big threshold for a lot of folks, and if you want to stay out of that mortgage game, the sweat equity is really critical. So I don't think there is. And actually, I did a kind of a study by building my shop, and I was very interested in how to economize and get the square footage needed for that minimum, which I also think needs to be lowered. I think the minimum should be more like 500 or 600 square feet. There are just so many projects out there and tiny homes that would provide great shelter. And so the cost, that extra cost, is really unnecessary. And so I think that's something that we should lobby and the POA for, is a reduced cost or square footage minimum.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why I got Steven up here today is because he's one of the few contractors that I feel like can give you a number and come within a small percentage of that number at the end line goal, depending on finishes. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So the customer is going to drive the cost of the house. I mean, there are the basic expenses in a house, and so that right now is probably starting at $200 a square foot, and so that adds up pretty quick. And I think that we need to come up with solutions on how how to get that lower, and one of them would be to change that minimum down
Agreed.
to about 500 or 600 square feet.
Agreed. Do we want to open up to any questions? Do you want to ask Steve any questions?
So Steven's not just a contractor here, but he's, like he mentioned, he's an owner builder as well. He's built his own straw bale house here in the Baca. I guess, what would your advice be, Steven, for someone that maybe even isn't looking to hire a contractor out, but kind of did like what me and Matt did or what you did and just kind of be an owner builder and kind of oversee anything? There's challenges of obviously steps and if you have experience with stuff, but what's the best mindset that you would say to give somebody a start and get them excited
Well, I
about it?
love what Pete said. It is going to be the hardest thing you ever did or do or take on, because it is really challenging and it's hard to finish things. And that's what you need to do when you have a house. You need to finish it. And so it's a super challenge there.
Yeah, and a piece of advice that got me through our Earthship is we went to the Earthship Academy and just did a tour. Goldie, my partner, went to the academy, and Ron over at Earthship, who's over with Off Grid Guru, at his booth yesterday, I went to one of his speeches, and he was just like, "It's gonna take everything you have to build an Earthship," and I feel like it did, and I needed to hear that to finish my house. And is it finished, Pete?
Matt's house is finished.
Amen.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I'd give that seal of approval on Matt's house as well.
And one
Yeah.
thing too with, building, if you're doing it by yourself or if you have a partner that you're building with or whatever, I mean, there's an expression that we've heard down in New Mexico in Taos is like move to Taos, lose a spouse. But I've also heard build a house, lose a spouse. So if you are
That
building,
happens all the time.
it happens all the time. So, and it's happened to me before. So it's like, it's happened to 50% of the people here. So if you have a partner, just realize you got to be in a good place because it might be tough.
And me and Goldie made it through the other end miraculously, which is,
Yeah.
she's not here right now, but I love her to death. She's the light of my life. And we're not trying to bum you guys out. We're just giving you something to brace yourself for. If you're going to build with a partner, get a couples counselor. That's not a bad idea. That might not save you, but who knows? It might. And yeah, when Steven's talking about affordable housing, he's really talking about hiring the full thing out. I think it's totally capable for someone to come in and learn and build. So we're not trying to we're trying to move you guys along with your builds because there's plenty of builders out there.
One other thing, if you don't have a lot of experience, there's so much construction work out here. There is so much construction work out here. I want to repeat that because there's so many people, whether you're in Denver or even Alamosa or Salida, the construction wages out here are very high, relatively speaking to other places. So even if you don't know how to frame, if you don't know how to do cement or flat work, if you don't know how to do stucco, right? Any of that stuff, get on a crew and just show up. I was a music teacher at Moffitt School from 2016 to 2020. And a lot of the kids that were juniors and seniors in the summertime, I would try to get them on crews that I was working on, spec houses, whatever. If they don't know stuff, a kid can get a job and make 20, 25 bucks an hour like that right off the bat and learn something, learn a trade. So even if you're building your own house, try to get in line with guys. I've worked for Steven before, I've worked for Paul before, and I've worked for Adam Kinney before. All these people that have been doing this for decades here, get in with people that are reputable and they'll teach you something. And if you work hard, and you show up to work on time, they're going to call you back and you're going to learn something. And after a couple years, you can take that in your tool belt and do it to your own house, So try to work hard. It's like I said, the work ethic is huge.
One of the questions I didn't answer that Matt had asked was study resources. And I love YouTube. It is amazing how much you can learn. I actually send my new guys to YouTube for studying framing. There are people out there that are really interested in showing you what they can do. And so you can learn from the top experts in the field and get all kinds of exposure, drywall, framing, foundations, concrete. It's all right there at your fingertips with YouTube. And it's an outstanding resource. So it's one that I promote and think that you could learn everything you need to. Right there, except the sweaty, dirty part. When where you have to show up and put the labor in?
Yeah, and really a lot of these YouTube people are pretty easy to get a hold of. I probably get about 10 phone calls a year. A lot of people from Texas, the Midwest, and they just, they want to build an airship, and I can find out in a few questions if they got the stuff to do it. But people are easy to get a hold of. Call people up, bother them. People with knowledge, like Steven loves to share knowledge.
I do, yeah. I'm available for free consultations, and I'm very interested in supporting my community. So if someone wants to show up and get some stuff figured out, I'm happy to talk to them about it.
Cool.
One other thing I want to mention on a side note, we talked about this last year, but it's a huge ignorance of even people that have lived here for a long time. But it's kind of an earthship thing, but it applies to everything. Rainwater harvesting. In the state of Colorado, and this kind of goes off the building side, but goes into the sustainability and housing side a little bit. Rainwater harvesting in the state of Colorado, you can only capture 110 gallons from your rooftop legally, and you can only use that water to water, say, a tomato plant outside, outdoor use, a garden, whatnot. I don't know how many people garden here, but 110 gallons goes really quick, even if you just got a couple tomato plants, right? And we get maybe 10 inches of rainfall a year here, give or take, not counting precipitation and snowfall. So it's kind of challenging if you want to build something and do these systems that are, very cool. But the thing about it is, if you live in the grants or if you qualify for a residential well permit, you can get what's called a rooftop precipitation permit through DWR, Department of Water Resources in Colorado. And it is a free permit if you qualify for the well permit, and you can capture an unlimited amount of rainwater. Me and Matt both have 1,800 gallon cisterns in the back of our earthship berms that are buried. So I think I'm the only person I know in the Baca here that finaled with the POA, with my state plumbing inspector, Andy Madano, without a well. I repeat, I finaled on my plumbing permit without a well, with just a rooftop precipitation permit. So if you're interested in rainwater harvesting, look into it. It's called a GWS 78 permit. But again, yeah, if you're looking for that, I just got a well drilled finally after a number of years, and it was like $15,000 nowadays for a well, and that's 140 feet deep. I have had nothing but sand and my foot valve getting sanded, my well pump getting sanded. They've come and pulled it up, and it's just muddy water, right? So if you're interested in alternatives like rainwater harvesting, gray water, look into it. It's doable, but you have to be prepared and you have to understand what's going on. I mean, for the longest time, I'm like, am I going to be able to final with the state? Is Andy going to pass me on my plumbing final? And I passed. So you can do it. If you want to capture rainwater, I think the formula for it is for every inch of rain, for every 1,000 square foot, you can capture 600 gallons of water. Obviously, with earthship, they're using water 2-3 times with systems and gray water systems and recircing. But if you want to live that lifestyle, this is the county and the place to do it in. So that's just an alternative system. And Matt has some alternative systems as well, whether it's gray water or even his unique heating system he might talk about. So we'll talk about one or two of those things, and we're going to open up to questions here soon.
I think we can open up to questions. Does anybody have any questions real quick? Okay, we got one here.
I just want the definition of earthship.
Pete can answer that one.
Earthship, again, it was kind of created and founded by a guy named Mike Reynolds that was down in New Mexico back in the 70s racing dirt bikes, and he was an architect and had really crazy ideas with glass bottles and reusing materials like tires and whatnot. But there's principles to earthships. So some of the principles is rainwater harvesting, repurposed materials, passive solar, gray water systems. I mean, me and Matt both build earthships, like I said, technically. They're out of tires traditionally, but I would also say they're a little bit hybrid. You know, Mike Reynolds has packages that you can go to earthshipbiotexture.com and drawings that you can kind of try to build to the T. But if you just kind of get the basic principles of some of those designs, whether it's an earthship, by Mike Reynolds standards or not, or whether it's just trying to incorporate all those systems of water harvesting, gray water, passive solar, thermal mass, it all kind of comes down to it. So I would even argue if you build an ICF house, which is a insulated concrete form, and you just filled it with cement, and if you didn't want to use tires because you're 50 years old and don't want to pound tires for 2 years, you could still berm it up and it would still be functional, just like going into a basement. I grew up in Ohio, and a lot of people in Ohio have basements. So it's like you go down to a basement when it's 90 degrees outside, it's cooler. If you go into a house that's bermed, whether it's made out of tires or cement or whatever, or concrete, it's going to have that thermal mass. So.
And me and Pete rarely promote Earthships because of all the work, but we do support Earthship. We love Earthship. Mike Reynolds is our hero. The labor is intense. Any questions?
Growing food. I'm sorry.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thomas built an Earthship.
Yep.
Alicia is starting her Earthship.
Yep.
They're our neighbors. Tire pounding parties. We're looking forward to it. Any questions out there? Dusty? Oh, you want to hear about the heating system? Oh, so I have a unique system that I used to work for a schoolie conversion company in Denver, and my buddies there taught me a lot of stuff. You're working in school buses. It's really small, so it makes bigger projects easier, I think. It's really difficult, and it's called a dump load system, and it's where my solar batteries, if you think about batteries as like water cisterns, when they become full, they hit a float mode, and once it kicks into float mode, it actuates a 12-volt signal that turns on a relay that goes into a conventional hot water tank that I've replaced the AC elements with 48-volt DC elements. And so I'm making hot water as soon as my batteries are full. And we get 400 days of sun out here in Colorado, so we got plenty of hot water. You can do other systems. You can do radiant floor heat like that. Just a unique way. I have a gray water system. It's not legal, and I don't care. And that is actually a failed system, and this is how we live and learn. And I've shut it down for the time being.
And to Matt's point about his alternative heating system, you know, with the heat sink, we've made a video on it recently on our YouTube channel, and there was so many people in the comments who were talking about solar hot water systems. Solar hot water systems are great, but they also cost a lot of money. And if anybody's ever lived with a solar hot water system, when the maintenance comes along or whatever else, sometimes it can be a lot for somebody. So just trying to explore alternative systems. There's not one that's the best or one that's the worst or whatever. Just be open to learning and researching. Like Steven said, YouTube everything. Try to find all these different techniques, whether it's construction or systems or
keeping it simple.
Rainwater harvesting, you name it. Just try to keep it simple and try to explore what works for you.
Any more questions out there?
Any more questions, even specifically here in the Baca or code stuff or any sort of alternative construction stuff?
So you mentioned that you were collecting rainwater and then you made the decision to drill a well. What influenced your decision making there?
What influenced my decision-making process with the well and the rainwater is sometimes it doesn't rain. And there's been years where, you know, we have a lot of creeks here and a lot of water here. It's probably one of the biggest aquifers around is the San Luis Valley. It's pretty crazy to think that water that comes from these mountains goes into these watersheds, and whether it's the Rio Grande or the Arkansas, this water goes all the way to the ocean. So we are in a water-rich place. You know, and again, usually the creeks are running most of the year, but I've been here for 8 years, and there's been a year or two that the creek by my house hasn't ran at all. So if you're, again, kind of thinking about systems and backup systems, I support the rainwater harvesting, and I like the idea of trying to use as much water that naturally comes on my footprint. But in years that where it doesn't, having redundancies and different systems is always a plus. So even like heating, going to heating, like passive solar. Well, if I don't have to burn as much wood, or if I don't have to use as much, you know, resource from propane or whatever to heat my house, it's a redundant system. So really for me, it was finally worth it to say, hey, I love capturing water and using it, and I put all this infrastructure into capturing the water, but to have a well is kind of water is life. So.
Have a backup for your backup. I have a whole nother propane on-demand system in case my batteries mess up for my system. So.
And even speaking of systems and backup systems, like my house and a lot of people that build alternative houses, you know, owner builders, I think Matt's as well, a lot of us don't have homeowners insurance. I don't know, is anybody out there that built their own, raise your hand if you built your own house. I just want to kind of see a gauge. And then keep your hand raised if you never have had homeowners insurance. So there's a couple of us out here, right? So it's kind of scary to think, wow, what if a fire comes through and your house burns down? All that hard work for nothing, right? To insure houses out here, sometimes you need to have redundant systems. I was looking at an insurance policy for my house, and just having a wood stove for the main source of heat doesn't qualify. I have to put some sort of on-demand propane or electric heater in. So just having redundant systems, whether it's for something like an insurance policy or just if your system breaks. I mean, even like, it might sound crazy, but if you have a solar system and an all off-grid system, maybe it would be nice to have a little system that if your inverter ever fails and you need to tie into the system in your mudroom, that's a smaller size system.
And these new building codes are not going to help us if they're going to try to imply this on our county, because they do not allow wood stoves. And I don't know how many of you guys would use wood stoves here.
How many
Is it
people
like
use wood
everybody?
stoves?
Imagine not being able to burn wood in your own damn house. And
that's the thing about Crestone too in Saguache County. We said it before, but it's a pocket of freedom. We want to protect, you know, we're not against building to codes. If you want to build to code and still live in a county that doesn't make you, that's great.
overbuild your house.
Overbuild your house. Make sure the snow loads are good. Make sure all these things structurally are good. Make sure your R values are good. But it shouldn't be a qualifying factor to say you can or cannot do it. Again, Mike Reynolds said if beavers and wasps can build your own house, how come we can't? You know, so.
Got any more questions out there?
And real quick,
Okay, yeah.
the last thing on that is like, there was a lot of stuff with the Energy Fair with Lisa Bodie and other folks, Brett Buchanan, Sean King. Last year, the state almost adopted building codes and forced counties to do it. So I think Brett mentioned on stage yesterday, there was like 6 counties in Colorado that still didn't adopt building codes, and we're one of them. And it was one of those things where it was literally like on the county commissioners to either vote this in and we adopt it, or we stay where we're at. So I encourage you, if you guys are here today and you're excited, or if you bought some land or whatever, do it. Because if we
Fight
don't
these
do
codes.
it, we're not going to get it. We're not going to keep it. If people don't want to keep on building alternatively and having no codes and being able to create stuff, if you don't jump on it now, it's going to be harder in 5 years from now.
And our
you
county
might not be able
commissioner-
to.
Our county commissioners actually sat down and listened to each one of us come up and speak, which I feel like we were really lucky to have that opportunity. And a lot of people came and showed up, and I'm really proud of our community. Goldie, Lisa Bodie, a lot of people forefront of that. Sean King, huge. Like, thank you guys. And without them and their minds, I think that we would have building codes right now and we'd be in a whole different world here.
Yeah, there's less than 7,000 people in Saguache County. I mean, we have more elk in this county than we have people, you know? So it's like we got to
Frontier County.
we got to carry this heritage that we've had from people that have done it for decades before to the future. I mean, like I said, I was a school teacher. I was the music teacher out at Moffett. We got to save this for our kids. There's so many young families and young people in Crestone where this is our culture. This is our community. This is something we can hand down to people.
And
So-
strike while the iron is hot, because I feel like it's a ticking time bomb when it comes to codes here.
All right, more questions.
Isn't there some kind of catch if you build your own house and then you want to sell it?
Say that one more time in the microphone.
Isn't there some kind of catch if you build your own house and then you have to leave or something and you want to sell the house? Well,
What do you mean exactly?
I heard you had to live in the house for multiple years.
I think that, yeah, that's like a capital gains thing. Yeah. Let Aventa talk to that.
So, I'd like to address several challenges you have, if you don't mind. Sorry.
Put it
Yeah,
on your lips.
But one of the things about selling your house is that the person who's planning to buy your house probably wants financing, right? So, yeah, I mean, we're talking about if you can't get insurance, that's going to be very difficult. So thinking about some of those things, with Blue, we just found out this last month that Blue's going to adopt our Aventa's ability to lend on off-grid housing. So really happy about that. So looking at your different building, your dome homes, your straw bale homes, your earth homes, we are still going to look at those and offer financing. In the past, I've been able to sell a straw bale house to Fannie Mae, but that's not typically possible. So we're going to put those in our books. So your deposits are going to come back to you and the community to help you with those kinds of things. But insurance is a huge challenge there. We do construction loans. So if you're looking at that, talk to us before you build a vertical wall. You want to protect your interest in that, so you want to get title insurance. So talk to us about that. It's very difficult to get title insurance if you've already built a vertical wall. So another reason why when you're going to resell that home, can you get free and clear title on your property so that you can pass that along to the buyer?
Thank you.
I hope that answered your question, sir.
Cash
Thank
is
you.
king. Cash is king.
Al Sutherland.
Couple little things. Yes, sir. I've been off the grid. I have a place in New Mexico.
Al, hold that up to your mouth.
Been off the grid for 4 years. Is that good?
Thank you.
I recommend a small windmill to back up your solar. Like right now, clouds up, the wind comes up. You'll find there's a very good interface. It keeps your batteries from running down. Composting privies, 2-seater, the best thing in the world. I've also pumped my water with air pressure. And I got it's the Bojan method. They make windmills, and pumping with air pressure is so much better. It doesn't freeze up. You can do it all above, everything's above ground. Anyway, a few tips from Uncle Al.
Al Sutherland, ladies
Thanks,
and gentlemen.
Al.
Amazing pianist.
Best organ player in Crestone.
How much time we got left here?
We got about 15 minutes, so yeah, please ask some questions.
Do you know of any contractors or communities on the Front Range? I'd heard something about one near Colorado Springs, but I couldn't find any information because ideally I need to be within an hour of DIA and at least until I retire.
Do I personally know any contractors in that area? Nothing I can really recommend here on stage. Maybe Steve has
I happen
something.
to have a family member who's a contractor, and it's Mark Harrell Associates, and I'll get you his phone number after the presentation.
Perfect. Any other questions out there, ladies and gentlemen?
Dusty,
Miss Dusty.
Dusty, come on up.
Just a question about renovating a very conventionally built structure. I'm trying to figure out anything I can do to make it better. And it's on a crawl space, which I find challenging. Has anybody ever tried filling their crawl space with scoria?
Steven might know this one.
Well, I actually think a crawl space could be an advantage. What is it about it that you're finding challenging?
Well, it's probably the ideal mouse habitat. Pack rats like it too. They love living under there. It's a wonderful avenue to get inside the house.
Yeah, so that it would be a health hazard. But actually, I like crawl spaces because they allow you to access the house's utilities later, and you can do additions, remodels, and that kinds of thing. So that's one of the reasons I built a crawl space for myself. Now, it does need to be detailed very well, and because rodent intrusion is a very serious problem.
Can you spray foam under there? Is there any way to make it warmer under there?
Yeah, spray foam actually is a great way to insulate your crawl space, for sure. I think that'd be a great solution, and we see that used frequently.
Awesome, thank you.
Mr. Adam Kinney.
But Dusty, also maybe if you did diamond lath and then spray foam, it might keep critters out.
Nice.
Can you give any examples of ways that you've had to adjust your expectations building your own house?
Yeah, Adam's question was, Do we ever have to adjust our expectations? Absolutely. I mean, me and Matt, the years that we've been building here, and when you start building a house here, especially if you're asking people that have been here for a while before you, we had a friend named Chris Steen who built an awesome Scria bag house. We'd ask Chris every other day, hey buddy, come over here, what do you think we should do with this? What's the next step for this or that? If you have in your mind some sort of grand vision that you can't be flexible with, especially if you're a little ignorant to some of the steps, you got to take everybody's opinions on, but you can't be dead set to one idea. If you are set to one thing and it's like a death sentence, let it go. If something happens where you wanted to do something a certain way, but it just really doesn't make sense after the more you figure stuff out, or YouTube videos you watch, or friends that you talk to, don't swallow your own pride. Just don't be so prideful that you can't let go of something. I have a friend here that's going to be building a house next year, and he sent me a lot of different ideas and drawings, and it's great, and different pitches and angles, kind of like what Lloyd Kahn was saying yesterday. It's great to be artistic, and that's what a lot of people are attracted to natural building and alternative building about, but know when to let go of something. Something that's a rectangle might be a lot easier to build than a geodesic dome. There's so much more time involved when you start to get kind of dead set on having something a certain way. So be able to let something go and try to find an alternative that's like a good medium ground for meeting in the middle. So, Matt?
Ask who? Christine? What does that mean? Don't do it like that, you goddamn idiot. Changing my expectations is probably biggest with building with a partner, and we both have an idea, and Goldie had it in her idea this way, and I had it in mine, and then that's the biggest changing of expectations that I've had, is trying to compromise with your partner. Do you want to be right or do you want to be in love? Is like what she says to me, and I love her to death for that. Are we running out of time here, Kim?
Well, no, I'm going to help you with the mic. If you.
Oh, cool, thank you. So that's the biggest one for me, is building with my partner, and you have to wear so many damn hats when you're building your house. Like, you get really invested in your electric, and then all of a sudden you got to switch to plumbing. You got to switch gears. It's that's a big expectation change for me too. Steve, do you want to comment on that one?
Well, I had a great opportunity here in the Baca to be involved in every aspect of the construction of my house, which was unusual for me because I'm not an electrician, but my electrician helped me, and I'm not a plumber, and my plumber helped me, and I tied the heat down, and I was literally involved in every aspect of the house, and that's what earned the opportunity to have a house that we could afford to live in, and raise our children, and that was the purpose of the house, and so we accomplished that. My partner, Christina over there, and I did that together. So that was a lot of work.
One more expectation that I didn't see coming was just Crestone. Like, I am in love with this place and love this community. Any more questions out there?
I got it. And I'm going to hand it over to Eric.
What's up, guys?
What's up, brother?
Owner Builders Unite. I love that your house is behind you on the poster.
Yeah, that's
right
my
here.
house. That's me and Goldie's house.
It's perfect.
Yeah,
Well,
that's an Earthship.
I was wondering more about, did you guys already, I walked away for 1 second, came back. Did you guys talk about the electrical and plumbing inspections? And, because currently, the electrical and plumbing inspection, I would imagine, being the most amount of coordination with getting the inspector to come out, being to code. I feel like it's a valuable topic to talk about for just a second in terms of, are there any like major things that stand out right now in terms of like, what would you say for someone, should an owner builder sit down and really look at that code? Like the whole electrical code book, the plumbing code book, what is to code for plumbing electrical in Colorado, or just work with somebody? Like, is it too much to take on your own? Are there any major?
It's not too much to take on your own. It's actually really easy. if you have a floor plan and you have it thought out and you have a good drawing for your floor plan, the outlets are so many feet away. Abraham Electric was just sitting here. He's helped me out a bunch. My buddy Benny's come over and helped me, and it's just Nelium. Like, love Nelium. He helped me plumb my house. I have a plumbing background, and it's just simple things. It's just how high off the ground, and you can. It's a little bit elusive in the code book, but yeah, like there's so much shit on YouTube, and it's all there. So it's like.
But for Colorado specifically, is
Yeah.
there anything in Colorado specifically where you're like, hey man, this isn't just any state's electrical code or plumbing code? Because it's still, what is the year of the Colorado State plumbing and electrical? Is it the most current that we have to be up to date with?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I would say to your point of like knowing it and kind of piggybacking off what Steven said and what Matt said, you know, if you don't know how, if you've never done electric before, but you have an idea of it, or if you've never done plumbing before, but you have an idea of it, work with someone, work with a friend, get the basics of it down. Because usually with plumbing and electrical inspections, you have certain sign-offs. So you might have your rough in, you might have your trim out, you might have your final. Even like what Steven was saying to Dusty with the crawl spaces. You know, my earthship, I poured a slab. So I had to have all my plumbing and my drain in so the inspector could see that before I could go to the next step. So if you had a crawl space, that kind of alleviates you a little bit of time and pressure to like finalize and encase your stuff in 4 inches of cement or concrete, right? So just knowing kind of the basic steps, I think it's manageable. Like Matt, I had help with mine as well, and it's just pick a friend or have a contractor or someone that you can at least ask questions to get to the first step of the sign off, the rough in, the trim out. So I don't think Colorado's too much different than other states for plumbing and electrical. But those things are always changing, like what Eric said, and that's really, in my opinion, where you should talk to someone that does it every day, that knows the code every day. So, Mark Jacoby, did you have a question?
I'm going to give it to him in a
Okay,
second, but
yeah.
I had a comment about that. So what I got from other contractors doing my own with those two questions is they'll, and if you have a friend or someone just went through the process, that's different, but they have to get the permit if they're, actually signing anything. But if you're doing it and you have a relationship, they can contribute and give you some pointers as you go through it, right?
Great question.
So you're either a
Great comment, yeah.
homeowner signing off for the state of Colorado, or you have a contractor actually getting you the permit, but you can work around that.
Correct.
So,
Correct. So that's a great thing when you're pulling the permits initially. If you're planning on working with a contractor and they're going to do it, it's usually something for them to pull the permit. But if you're pulling it as the homeowner on the DORA website, just be prepared to, if the inspector asks you, hey, did you do that work? You say, yes, I did. Yes, you did. Don't ask, don't tell.
Don't throw your contractors under the bus here, folks.
No rats.
Snitches get stitches. The Mark Jacoby, we love you.
Hello, gentlemen. Likewise back. Thank you for doing this. I'm so glad you guys are carrying on the owner-builder tradition around here. It was like that when we got here, and it's something that needs to continue. One thing I did want to put into the mix, and particularly at the financial institution being here, when we got here, we had a lucky thing that we got our land, which you made a point of saying was the hardest part, right? But we got our land at a breakdown that was spanned over 8 years. And so we paid about 10% or 1% of the cost of the property over an 8-year period every month. So an $8,950 lot cost me $89.50 a month, which puts a lot of money extra into your pocket that you can put into building. And the thought behind that was to get an incentive to keep people here that were young, that would take on some of the infrastructure like the fire department, EMTs, all the other things that go with making a community. So it was an incentive to keep people here who are of use. And I just want to put that out there.
Thank you, Mark.
The thing about, I think you put it a different way, but it's the lowly clam builds its own house. And and particularly with couples, it's like you have to remember it's just a house, you know, even though it's a big thing and it's one of the bigger things you'll do in your life. You got to remember it's just a house and it's not worth like tearing your jugulars out over, right? So
Mark has a beautiful home and a great situation. And, you know, the financial guys are here. They're a tool. Utilize them. Jump through a few hoops, you know, plug your ears. But and then our plumbing and our electrical inspector, they give you a free visit. So you can use those guys. Like use their knowledge, jump through their hoops. They're nice fellas. We're not against any of these guys. Joel?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Mark was saying and what you all had mentioned about purchasing tax lots. You got to be careful when you develop a tax lot and an heir shows up out of the ether and claims that lot. You have a fully developed lot at an improved value to the benefit of them. So those are details that you really need to get clear on when you're buying a tax lot and planning to develop it.
Yeah, good point. A lot of these tax lots that we were talking about earlier, you have to kind of know. You don't just want to jump into it blindly and buy something. Lots of times, Saguache County will give you like a quick claim deed. And if that quick claim deed, you know, if somebody says, oh, wow, looks like someone's starting to build on this house or this lot that I let go of, in theory, they could go back, paid whatever taxes and get it. So there's a period of time, I want to say it's 8 or 9, 10 years, 7 years. 7 to 9 years, depending on it. So just make sure you know the history of the lot if you do get one of those cheap lots. We got about 5 minutes left. 1 or 2 questions left. Yeah.
Yeah. Earlier you'd mentioned the Colorado gray water law, and I was just curious if you could expand for a moment on that and how can that benefit people, you know, depending on their circumstances.
Well, gray water can benefit anyone because I think peeing and pooping and drinking water is fucked up. Pardon my language, and I think we can do better, and there's ways around it, and yeah, that's an opportunity that Colorado is let us have for years. I mean, gray water is amazing. We all know how precious water is, and it's going to be more precious in the future. And one more question out there, anyone? We're good. Oh, here we go.
You've encouraged people to hurry up and build because of the possibility of building codes.
Yes, sir.
Being adopted.
Yes, sir.
If I pull a permit before the building codes get adopted, am I grandfathered in?
As far as I know, you will be grandmothered in.
Even with extensions on the permit, if I had to get an extension?
Yes, sir, but you're paying the extensions. Be prepared to pay your electrical and plumbing extension, and then your POA extensions multiply substantially over time. Thomas, right? They go up pretty quick, and then if you get exterior completion, they reset. Is that right? And then here's Pete.
Just with that exterior completion thing specifically here in the Baca, say you build a house and it takes you 3 years to get exterior completion and you've already started to double on your permit cost. As soon as you get exterior completion where your outside's finished, everything looks good from the outside, even if it's dirt floors on the inside, if it's exterior completion, your permit fees with the POA reset to like how it was initially. So if the $70 doubles to $140 and then 6 months, $280, so on and so forth, where it's thousands of dollars in a couple years, if you time it where you wait to get your exterior completion after 2 years, if you're planning on building for 4 years, that will reset your fees for the POA at least and not make it where you're looking at $2,000 and then next 6 months, $4,000 and then $8,000. So that's a great thing to be aware of is timelines and how everything works.
And I think we're going to wrap it up here. And I see a lot of builders in this crowd right now, and there's a lot of information out there. And we really appreciate your support. And I really do love you, Crestone. Thank you so much. Here's Pete's last words here.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thank you, Steven, for coming up here and helping us. Contact him if you have any interest in, like I said, building a shell or anything like that. Steven's great. And yeah, if you like what we were talking about, Owner Builders Unite on YouTube. We try to do a video every week or two that covers a lot of this stuff. Last thing for Steven here.
Yeah, I love Crestone, and it's been a great opportunity for my family. And we had a tour today of our home, and it was really wonderful to have all of you visit. and to get to share that with you. And I love these guys and what they're doing and keeping the movement rolling. So, yeah, wonderful. Thanks. Appreciate you.
Great. Let's give another round of applause for our owner builders.